Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. I got a question from a viewer wanting to know what my favorite Carolina rig baits are, so I'm going to give you the answer to that. Now, just to preface this, I'm not a huge fan of a Carolina rig. I think they're kind of a pain in the butt to use, and at the same time, I think they're generally more difficult lure or technique to feel the bite, and therefore I do think you tend to have more fish that result with a gut hook. But having said that as well, it is a phenomenal presentation that generates a lot of strikes. Really good way to present a weightless bait or a weightless presentation to fish that are deeper, meaning you can take a Carolina rig and you can fish it down as deep as you want, and you're going to have a lead or a line behind that heavy weight that allows your bait just to glide through the water and look very, very natural. And having said that, generates a lot of strikes. So it's a fantastic technique. It's one that's been around for a long period of time and generates a lot of strikes. So I'm going to share with you my 5 baits, the times and the places where I like to throw it, because they can be absolutely deadly all over the country all year long. So we're going to get into that. Before I do, though, I want to remind you I do have a membership-based part of the YouTube channel where we do additional monthly videos, a monthly live stream. You can have direct access to me to ask your questions. So if that's something you're looking for, check out my members-only content as well. And if you're looking to support the channel and need to purchase some tackle, please use my Tackle Warehouse affiliate link that I provide in the video description. You can bookmark it for future purchases. You could purchase baits like this if you're looking to improve your Carolina rig game. All right, so let's dive right into this. My all-time favorite bait to throw on a Carolina rig is a Zoom Brush Hog, the full-size Zoom Brush Hog. These baits look amazing in the water when they're weightless. The problem, if you wanted to fish them shallow, is they generally are too buoyant and glide too much to fish them all that deep as a weightless technique. So when you put it on that Carolina rig, you can get this down to a really deep level and still present it where that bait is just gliding through the water with the big flappers and the tail going. It is a very, very good Carolina rig bait. It's one that I love to fish on ledges in like the TVA lakes. I love to fish it on the outside weed lines up here in the North Country. Generates better than average size bites, and it's just a very, very good fish catching bait on a Carolina rig. So if you like to throw a Carolina rig and have not thrown a brush hog yet, you might want to do that. Another one that I love to do if I'm fishing around smallmouth, this is something that often goes pretty overlooked, but there are a lot of diehard smallmouth fishermen in the North Country that recognize the power of this guy. This is a Zoom Speed Craw, Ultra Speed Craw. This is like smallmouth candy to a lot of fish. And when you present it in a Carolina rig manner, it just kind of glides over the rocks, generates a lot of really good bites from smallmouth. I've seen it cash tons and tons of checks at places like Lake Champlain. Guys were throwing it at the St. Lawrence River. I throw it all over back here in Minnesota and Wisconsin for smallmouth. Very, very good bait for that. It works great too on the Mississippi River around like wing dams and sand drops. And when I do that, I like the green pumpkin, but I'll put a little bit of orange dye on the tips to give it a little bit of color. Great presentation for smallmouth. Another one, if you're just looking at generating a lot of strikes, throw a fluke style bait. So this is a power jerk shad by Berkley. Really good fluke style bait. Put this on a Carolina rig, and what you're doing is you're presenting a soft jerk bait at deeper levels. So, you know, you've probably fished one of these weightless around the top of the water column and seen how well it generates strikes. Well, you put it on a Carolina rig with a longer leader. I like to fish it with like a 3 foot or longer leader where you actually let that bait move back and forth. It'll just glide in that water column. So it's that dying bait fish profile along the bottom. Probably the best bait at just generating overall bites. You go to places like Sam Rayburn, guys down there love to throw a watermelon red flake fluke on a Carolina rig, and that's something that you see work all over the country. Another one of my absolute favorites, especially during ledge fishing lakes, if you're trying to generate bites in an area that you know you've had a bunch of other boats already through, if you're familiar with ledge lakes, TVA ledge lakes specifically, you can get a whole group of boats playing bumper boat, fishing one tiny little spot. Well, I've seen a Berkley power worm, both the 7, 10, 12-inch sizes on a Carolina rig, just completely outperform other guys that are fishing those areas. Because a lot of times when you have a bunch of guys fishing on a ledge, you've got guys throwing crankbaits, you got guys throwing spoons. The finesse presentation is almost always a drop shot in these days. Well, your Carolina rig with a old school Berkley power worm is going to be one of those baits that you can go in there, catch fish when other people aren't getting them to bite on some of those bigger power baits. So I love in ledge lakes, I always have like a 10-inch power worm or a 12-inch power worm rigged up because I know I'm going to be fishing heavily pressured areas for the most part. And then the last one, it's hard again to talk about Carolina rigs and not talk about your soft stick baits. So this is a Maxscent 5-inch, the General by Berkley, one of my favorites. It's just kind of similar. It's kind of a cross between your power worm and say your soft jerk bait, where this thing down there, you give it a little bit longer leader again, and it just glides around and then just settles. You can fish it very much the same way you'd be fishing a wacky rig, but you're fishing it in a much deeper level. The bait, when you've just got it rigged, say if you rig it on an EWG, it'll just shimmy down to the bottom. And it's that fall that we all know is so hard for a lot of fish to turn away. It just has something to it. It's a do nothing bait that ever since the Senko came out has shown it's one of the best proven fish catching plastics we have. Don't think you can't throw it on a Carolina rig. So those are my 5 go-to Carolina rig baits. I will mix in a lot of other things depending on the lake I'm at or the species I'm after, but these are like my 5 absolute must-have. Hopefully this answers the question. Let me know in the comment section, what are some of the Carolina rig baits that you really like to throw so that others can learn from you? If you enjoyed today's video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Stay tuned, new video coming out tomorrow.